We want to welcome back to the show Paul Chabot. Paul is the founder and chief executive officer of conservativemove.com, a company that's set up to help conservatives move from blue states to red states, so to speak. And they've got a new branch we'll talk about in a minute that I know some of you out there will be interested in. But Paul, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Kirby, great to be with you and great to be with all your listeners, and just praying for your safety out there. We are hearing about the anarchy hitting the streets.
Yeah, and it is hitting the streets. And I tell you, by the time they got through trashing downtown 3 weeks ago, trashing the suburbs 3 weeks ago, it's been an interesting ride out here. Paul, let's go back. In 2017, you founded Conservative Move. Give us a little bit of background on you and the idea behind Conservative Move, what it's supposed to do.
Sure. So my wife and I, at the time, we were native Californians, born and raised there with our 4 kids in Southern California. My wife and I both prior law enforcement. I'm current military as well. And, you know, we're just a typical average middle-class family trying to make ends meet in California, which used to be a good Republican state of Nixon, state of Reagan. Pete Wilson, you know, was the last Republican governor. I don't really count Schwarzenegger as a Republican
No.
as of recent. But all that said, it was a fairly good state growing up in the 70s, 80s, and then it did a complete turn in the last 10 years, so much so that the Democrats have a supermajority across the state. And this was back in 2016 with initiatives of things that were extremely concerning to us. So we always had a beeline on an exit plan, and I think most people nowadays do, especially with the chaos going on in these blue cities. And we narrowed in on a town here in North Texas to move to, and we moved. We made the move. Took us 45 days to get out of California and get here. But once we moved to Texas, we realized everybody around us moved here for the exact same reasons, most of them from California or New York or other states, but with conservative values. So we figured, you know what, we're going to put together a company, see if we can't help people sell their homes in blue states and move to red states and create services in between. Since then, the company kind of blew up overnight. We've been on Fox News and every media network, not only nationally but also internationally. We now have hundreds of real estate agents across the country doing what we love doing, and that's helping families escape blue states and moving to red states. So here we are 3 years later, and proud to help moms and dads, retirees, and everybody else in between.
Now, it's not simply a matter that you provide real estate services in terms of finding a house in Texas and selling a house here. You also help job placement, right?
We do. We have a recruiter on board who helps our clients identify regions that they're moving to. Also, our local agents that are in these red states are very much in tune with the job market in those areas. So it really is a personal process where agents on both ends work, communicate together with the client on helping them make that move. But we also encourage clients, once they get to their state, don't forget the reasons why they left and get engaged. I'll give you an example. Here in Texas, we created a PAC, a political action committee called Keep Texas Red, PAC.com. If you look at our video, it's all former Californians that moved to Texas with a video about what we fled from and why we're here. And we think messages like that need to resonate, especially in this next election cycle in these states, including Florida and others that, you know, have had a history of going either way. The Democrats today running radical left extremists that are anti-everything that America stands for. So these former blue state conservatives have a strong message to tell. When you move, you got to tell your story and share it.
Yeah, I totally agree, because my biggest fear is I've run into some people who are on the left, maybe not as far left as the Democratic Party today, but they're liberal, and they look around them and they don't connect the mess that they live in with their voting habits. And so they move to a nicer place like, say, Texas or Florida, and then they bring their old voting habits with them. And I think there's a disconnect sometimes people have between how you vote and how you wind up living. And I'm glad you emphasized that, because it's so important for people to understand that if you vote blue in Seattle and ruin the city, you'll vote blue and ruin Austin or Dallas or San Antonio or McKinney.
Yeah, and 2 points on that I think are fascinating, research-driven. When you look at the last U.S. Senate race here in Texas between Cruz and Beto O'Rourke, when you look at the exit polling, you will see that those that moved to Texas by a 60-40 split voted for the Republican ticket. So the challenge in Texas, interestingly, certainly we have Democrats moving here, but Republicans are outnumbering them. The challenge in Texas are around our college towns and these younger generations getting indoctrinated in University of Texas and others that are then voting, voting deep blue. And that's causing, a shift in some of these other areas from Dallas to San Antonio. Austin has always been a problem. And so collectively, we are paying attention to this and not taking it for granted. But also, interestingly, the Texas Republican Party put out a study showing that many Democrats that vote here, their first cycle, they may vote Democrat again, but as they get used to seeing how Texas is with the economy, the no income tax, low gas tax, many of them begin to evolve and vote red after their first cycle as well.
Nothing like experience, right? What they say,
right.
A conservative is a liberal that got mugged yesterday. So nothing like experience. We're talking about Chabot. He is the president and chief executive officer of Conservative Move. Their website is www.conservativemove.com. They're there to help you if you're thinking you've had it with blue states and blue cities and blue governance and blue politics. They're there to help you find a more friendly community, a city, a state with more family values, lower taxes, much more amiable to conservative beliefs. If you're interested in moving, they're there to help you. Now, Paul, you've opened up a new branch recently of Conservative Move that I want to talk to you about because I suspect there's some people in the audience who'd be interested in this specific idea.
Yeah, this one I'm equally excited about. Sometimes God prevents opportunities and challenges. And as I mentioned earlier, my wife and I are both prior law enforcement. So we've got a special place in our hearts for the men and women that are just getting attacked brutally, literally brutally murdered, shot in the back of the head, Las Vegas cop paralyzed, neck down, multiple cops killed, attacked all over the country. So we then took our Conservative Move model and decided to create another company within that called Law Enforcement Move. It's a really simple program. We're modeling Conservative Move, but helping active duty or current law enforcement officers or retired move out of these anti-police defunding type cities like New York, L.A., Seattle, Portland, etc., and moving them to police-friendly communities. When we launched this website about 2.5 weeks ago, it picked up national coverage on Fox, and then Washington Examiner ran a story on it. We've been contacted by dozens of law enforcement agencies around the country saying, please, we are in police-friendly communities. We would love to have these officers that are suffering in these anti-police cities come work for us. We've had thousands of police officers around the country reach out to us. Part of what we're doing now is building in a new recruitment apparatus with a recruiter to help these officers identify what are called lateral positions in these other states or communities where they can take their existing training and lateral into an agency in another state that will accept their current state police officer standard training.
Wow, so if there's an officer here in Seattle or Bellevue who's simply unhappy, wants to stay in law enforcement but doesn't have the support of local city councils and the local folks, they could, through you, possibly find a community, say in Texas or Florida, somewhere where they actually want them, where they're wanted because they're trained law enforcement.
Yeah, and there's a huge need. Look, recruiting's always been a challenge in America for law enforcement the last 5 or 10 years. However, now you're going to see an explosive departure. I think in New York City, you've got a 50 or 64% increase in those that are applying for early retirement. I'm sure the numbers are going to be the same across the board for most law enforcement agencies. Look, my heart goes out to those officers that have 18 years on or 16 years. They've got to almost fight it out to get those next 3 or 4 years to get their retirement and then leave. But you got a lot of young officers that have been on just 3 or 4 or 5 years looking around and going, A, can I stay around this agency? But B, if I do, what are the odds that something is going to happen where somebody pulls a gun on me at night or looks like a gun and I take action that I've been trained upon and I don't have the backing of my city police chief, a radical leftist DA who could be funded by Soros, is what he's doing across this country, and I end up in prison but doing the best job and the best thing that I thought. And so these are the officers also that need to look at their DAs, their cities, and go, do I have the support? Because mistakes happen. We don't want bad cops, got that, but cops are not perfect people, and they need to make sure they've got the protective action of those above them. And if they don't, they really need to look elsewhere.
I suspect you may be getting a lot of calls from Minneapolis if you're in the Minneapolis market. People know about you. I bet you are.
Yeah, Minneapolis is a sad state right now. They
Yes, it
voted
is.
defund the entire police department. It's an embarrassment. They're going to bring in private security of some sort. This is just, it's asinine what's happening to our law enforcement. To think that we are making them to be out the bad guys and girls, and yet the criminals are burning cop cars and shooting people. And it's just, what's happening today in our society is just disgraceful.
And it's almost like overnight. It's been just within a 2-3 month period, there's been this switch. If you want, if there's law enforcement officers listening, if you want information, go to lawenforcementmove.com, and we're going to put a link up on the podcast page. We're going to make this a podcast for you so you can listen to it. So you can find lawenforcementmove.com or conservativemove.com. Now, Paul, very quickly, if I were to call today and say I'm a police officer in Seattle, or, I've got 3 kids and I hate it out here, where do you start? What will be the next step for me in connecting with you and finding a place?
Yes, I'd say go to our website, fill out the contact form number 1, or call us at 877-391-1035. By the way, that 1035 is code talk or police talk for confidential. They all know what 1035 means.
Okay.
We keep that information personal because they're potentially looking to move without their employer knowing. We keep the entire process very confidential through and through on both ends for our law enforcement officers.
Okay, that number again is 877
391 1035.
1035. Okay, got it. And then for a conservative move, if you're not law enforcement, do you have a separate 877 number?
We do. It's 800-277-5487, or just go to conservativemove.com. At the top is a sign-up link. They can go on there, sign up, and we'll be in touch with them shortly as well.
Okay, and I will say, just for the audience, I met Paul last March. Trina and I are thinking about Texas for retirement. We're not quite there yet, but at some point we're thinking about it. And I cannot tell you that I met 2 most delightful, actually 3, Paul and his wife Brenda, and then Derek, who is the real estate agent there, who helped us with real estate and took us around. They're extremely friendly people, and we were down there for 4 days. And one thing that struck me about Texas, Paul, is that the friendliness of everyone, you hear about it, but it was true. People we ran into the hotel, people at the restaurants, the wait staff, the agents we talked to, the potential buyers we ran into when we were looking at the same house, that kind of thing. I have never met a friendly group of people across the board. Ethnicity, there were blacks and Hispanics and whites. Across the board we met, and everyone had that Texas friendliness, and you and Brenda and Derek were awesome. So, folks, if you're thinking...
Well, thank you.
Oh, listen, if you're thinking about this, folks, I would recommend here... I know we have at least one listener, Susan from Puyallup, who contacted you guys, and she's now safely ensconced in McKinney. I'm sure there are others, but if you're thinking about it, after all this, and you may be thinking 2-3 years down the road, but you want to get prepared, right?
That's right.
Yeah, you want to get to know what's down there, and where we looked at in McKinney and Melissa and northeast of Dallas, it was gorgeous country, and you folks, you would not believe what your money can buy in Texas. You would not believe, if you're used to the state real estate market, you wouldn't believe what you can get a nice quality home for in Texas. So numbers again, our websites, lawenforcementmove.com, conservativemove.com, and check them out. We'll put these things on the podcast page as well. Paul, best of luck. That's one of the reasons I think some of our states turn more blue is people move down there and we lose voters. But I got to tell you, you got to worry about your family, got to worry about your wealth, you got to worry about your health, you got to worry about the atmosphere you grow up in. And it's getting so hostile out here that I suspect a lot of people thought about it. And I think it's great that you're there to offer them some guidance and direction. People just aren't going, wild and throwing darts at the dartboard. You can guide them and help them. And I think that's great.
Absolutely. We say you got to fight where you got a fighting chance. And Texas really is ground zero with its liberty mindset and what we're going to do here, and hopefully be an example for the rest of the country. And who knows, we'll save the nation here with all those that move and fight with us.
You bet. Paul Chabot, CEO of conservativemove.com and lawenforcementmove.com. Paul, it's always a pleasure. We'll be in touch. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much. God bless.